Quick disclaimer, I am spoiling the ending of Inscryption in this video. It's an amazing indie game. If you haven't played it, don't watch that part of the video. I'll put timestamps so you know. All right, back to the video. When I was in 4th grade, my class was assigned a task to create a unique product to sell. It could be anything we wanted, and the more creative, the better. A classmate and I, another avid gamer like me, had the brilliant idea to combine all 3 of the current video game consoles at the time, the Xbox, the GameCube, and the PS2, into one awesome system where users could play every game from every console using the same controller. With an idea that brilliant, I'm not sure how this hasn't actually happened in real life yet. We dubbed our Frankenstein console with a clever name, the Ultra Cube, or something terrible like that. We didn't get a very high grade, possibly because the idea was so stupid it boggled the mind. Anyway, I say this because unlike 4th grade me, very smart and capable people have combined multiple and opposing ideas together and have made some truly strange, beautiful, and fascinating final products that have captured the hearts of millions, especially in the world of video games. I was supremely delighted with Black Salt Games' 2023 release of Dredge, perhaps the most high-profile indie game of recent memory to so successfully combine 2 of the most randomly paired video game genres you can imagine. Fishing simulation with Lovecraftian horror. Dredge was excellent, a triumph. And this difficult to define video game was so commercially successful that it's now being created into an official live-action theatrical movie. Both of Dredge's primary genres, fishing simulation and horror, are expertly and masterfully executed, giving you a delightfully fun and engaging minigame and inventory management-based fishing aspect with a chilling Lovecraftian horror element, guaranteed to get you thinking about the ending, the meaning, and the timeline of this game's fascinating and dark little world. Quick reminder, I make a lot of these video essays, and if you want to watch more of them, be sure to click that subscribe button so YouTube shows them to you. Okay, back to the video. Now, combining genres isn't a new concept in video games. Horror fans alone will be quick to remind you that there are very different types and subgenres of horror games. Is it action horror, survival horror, psychological horror, whatever this horror is? Ugh. There are endless genres and subgenres of each possible video game category. But this video is about opposing genres. Genres so different from one another that the very description seems like the mad ramblings of a bewildering 4th grader. What if chess and fighting games? What if dungeon crawling and rhythm? What if deck building and FPS speedrunning? What if deck building and psychological horror and real-life treasure hunting? Yeah, that's actually a thing, and I can't wait to talk about it. Years ago, I saw a quote from Justine Musk, our favorite wacko billionaire's ex-wife, that has always stuck with me, and it's profound and eye-opening invitation. Someone asked her how, like her husband, they too could become a billionaire. And Justine Musk invites them to look at things differently altogether. Quote, "Choose one thing and become a master of it. Choose a second thing and become a master of that. When you become a master of 2 worlds, say engineering and business," I think she means Tesla here, "you can bring them together in a way that will A, introduce hot ideas to each other so they can have idea sex, gross, and make idea babies that no one has seen before, and B, create a competitive advantage because you can move between worlds, speak both languages, connect the tribes, mash the elements to spark fresh creative insight until you wake up with the epiphany that changes your life." Weird analogy aside, combining opposing ideas to make beautiful idea babies is easier said than done, and I'd wager most of these types of ideas don't go much anywhere. But still, the medium of video games is ripe for creative innovation and expression, and if done right, in the examples of Dredge or Doki Doki Literature Club, these ideas can completely upend audiences' expectations and leave them with a truly unique, refreshing, and invigorating experience they'll be talking about for years to come. There are a few examples of video games I've played like this that I absolutely loved. Earlier I mentioned chess and fighting games. Yeah, that's actually a real thing. Checkmate Showdown, an actual chess game where instead of simply knocking your opponent's pieces off the board, you completely change genres and go from a chess simulator to a surprisingly in-depth 2D fighting game. where more powerful pieces like rooks and queens have more advantages and different moves than weaker pieces like pawns. I was able to play a demo of this at EVO 2023 and was pleased to see a long line of other fighting game enthusiasts waiting to try this baffling yet captivating combination of genres. For me, these kinds of games powerfully remind me of the boundless imagination of a kid who hasn't yet been beaten down by the hardships of life and learned all the rules yet. Like that there's no good reason to not dip your grapes in ketchup, like my 3-year-old daughter is wont to do. Or that why wouldn't you wear a skirt and pants and another skirt on top of that? Again, 3-year-old toddler. There is such an addictive beauty when two of these kinds of ideas combine that gives me honest pause when I see things like Checkmate Showdown. It's like it shouldn't work. Some part of my brain can't get over that. It can't get over that not only did someone think this idea, but then proceeded to actually spend months and years continuing to think that, and then actually created something entirely based on this upside down combination. And the best part, this thing is actually really freaking fun. Fortunately, there are lots and lots of these types of video games. I absolutely adored Cadence of Hyrule, where our favorite Hylian heroes must dance and move on rhythmic timing through the classic dungeons and monsters in the Legend of Zelda series. A rhythm game and a dungeon crawler? What a combination, right? It was a totally new formula that no one asked for, yet everyone was delighted to see. The very idea itself is just so charming and weird and interesting. It's like, what if Link and Zelda but dancing? And it's great to see the developers totally nail this combination. A lot of other games come to mind that pair seemingly incongruous genres to great effect. Moonlighter was one of my most favorite indie games the last several years. Both a Game Boy Advance Zelda clone focused on dungeon crawling and defeating monsters, while also transforming into a pleasantly in-depth merchant simulator where you must find the right prices to sell the loot you got from your dungeon crawling, and ensuring no thieves steal your hard-earned booty while you're not looking. Backpack Hero combines inventory management with turn-based combat, forcing you to rearrange the contents of your massive backpack to deal more damage more efficiently. I'm particularly excited for The Plucky Squire, an upcoming indie game that seamlessly transitions your character from a 2D drawing on a page to a 3D mode, with an incredible art style to boot. In a lot of ways, we as a gaming audience have seen masterpieces from every genre in a singular sense. It's hard to find an answer to questions like, what's the best fighting game? What's the best FPS? What's the best platformer ever made? Because there are so many possible answers, each a masterpiece in its own right. But the answer to this question becomes far more difficult and fun to figure out when you look at games that combine genres. Slay the Spire is probably the best deck builder roguelike combination, and it's one of my favorite games of all time. But Roguebook and Monster Train are close contenders for this really cool pairing of genres. The creators of the Yakuza series asked a simple question: what if a Japanese mobster video game was also about racing Hot Wheels and playing baseball and rhythm-based disco? These types of games are becoming more and more prominent, giving audiences beautiful, addictive, and extremely refreshing takes on the genres we've been playing since we were kids. Inscryption is perhaps the greatest example of genre combining in video game history. I have to confess, I bought this game when everyone was talking about it. I played this game, I thought I beat it, then stopped playing. Then I realized I straight up had not played this game yet. Not even close. Because if I had actually played the game, I would have realized that this game wasn't just a deck builder. It was a mind-bending, genre-defying horror puzzler absolutely drenched with hidden lore that culminated in a real-life treasure hunt in real-life Canada. To actually learn the full and comprehensive explanation of Inscryption, you need to watch Game Theory's full breakdown of this because, man, this explanation is complicated. But in short, here's a brief summary. Inscryption starts out as a fun little roguelike deck builder, where you use cute little forest-themed animal cards to defeat a weird, mysterious dungeon master type opponent in the increasingly creepy atmosphere of the cabin your character is trapped in. And the game starts to break the fourth wall more and more. See, the card game is just a small, very small part of Inscryption. Play the game long enough and you'll leave the card game part entirely and switch completely into a first-person detective mode as you explore the creepy cabin your character is playing in discovering hidden lore and terrifying secrets your dungeon master has been hiding from you. When you finally beat the dungeon master in the deck building part of the game, a big but definitely not final twist is revealed. Turns out this entire game you just played was actually a video recording of someone else that beat the same game. A fictional, aspiring card game enthusiast YouTuber who discovers a new trading card game, Inscryption. Upon opening a booster pack, he doesn't just find some cool holographic Charizard or something, but coordinates to a real-life location where he travels to and finds a floppy disk buried in the dirt in a remote forest. This triggers a response from the creators of Inscryption, again in the game you're playing, watching, that you are viewing through your own screen, which leads you, the player, to access a completely different video game with a new graphical style altogether. Look, again, if all this is confusing, just go watch Game Theory's full video, because this game is absolutely bonkers and it's about to get even weirder. Essentially, this YouTuber we're watching uncovers more secrets of Inscryption and its sister game that he's now playing, leading to more real-life experiences that are now firmly in the genre of found footage psychological horror that bleeds into the real world, where the true creator of Inscryption actually did bury treasure in a real-world forest in remote Canada somewhere, which real people actually found in real life. And yeah, look, a single genre, Inscryption is not. This mind-bending, fourth wall breaking game is just so fascinating, and it's impossible not to respect and appreciate the lengths these creators go to in order to subvert your expectations and make you just have to sit back and think, damn, wow, that was crazy. It's beautiful, it's strange, and absolutely mesmerizing to witness as a video game fan. No $100 million AAA budget needed. On that note, actually, let's quickly talk about the lack of creativity usually found in these massive AAA studio games. Recently, one of the hosts of one of my favorite video game podcasts, Will Wolf from the Wolf Den podcast, attended PAX East, one of the largest video game conventions in America, primarily featuring indie developers. He revealed that upon asking these developers if they're worried about the financial state of the video game market, well, with all the layoffs and closing studios, none of these indie developers were that worried. Why? Because they work for themselves. They rarely get outside funding, maybe through Kickstarter or something, meaning they don't have to fulfill any traditional corporate mandates or even do anything traditional at all. Most of these game developers don't have investors or a corporate board of directors demanding to know how they'll increase overall revenue projection by 7% next quarter. It's just them, sometimes without even a team, and their game. AAA studios literally can't afford to take many risks because they're pumping so much money already into producing these games and the ballooning and expensive staff required to make these games over many years. And the guys who foot the bill don't want any surprises or risks. The Last of Us 2 was famously revealed to cost over $200 million. Spider-Man 2 was revealed to cost around $300 million. At these heights, at these prices, no investor or corporate drone in a suit is going to jump at the chance to try something weird. No, games at this height have come to rely on the tried and true gameplay mechanics that have come to define this generation's biggest budget games. 4K, Ultra HD, 60 FPS graphics, motion capture performances by leading industry voice actors, semi-endless replayability to promote more in-game purchases. All of this more reminiscent of something like an Avengers movie than a trippy, creative, twisted final product that makes you question whether this game belongs in the kids section at GameStop or behind some locked door where they keep the X-rated games. I guess I'm not making a particular point here. I like AAA games as much as the next guy. Some of my favorite games of all time are AAA, like Last of Us and God of War, and I love going along for all these thrill rides. But there's also a reason why I play so many more indie games. Why I'm always scanning the, honestly, just terrible UI of the Nintendo eShop on the Switch, or the sales pages on my PS5, or that I tune in religiously and watch every single Steam Fest to see the coolest, weirdest, most creative indie games that come out each year. Honestly, I think it's because games that can combine genres like this and do it well make me think back to when I was like in 4th grade and when my imagination was much more open, I guess, for lack of a better word. Here's a personal example about this, and It might maybe look kind of weird, but here it goes. Back then when I was a kid, I remember I was really into military type gadgets and James Bond kind of things. I asked my parents to buy me a sketch pad, and I remember doing something equal parts silly, ridiculous, and baffling to anyone who might have been watching. I'd climb up on a roof at night, sketch pad in hand, lay down on the sticky sandpaper-like roof tiles, stare at the stars, and let my 4th grade imagination connect the stars like dots in my head to formulate a blueprint of something, then sketch these formations down as best I could. I know, super weird. I remember coming up with all kinds of weird ideas, most of which were absolute gibberish. But I remember drawing out in copious detail an idea I had for a non-lethal rifle that shot taser beanbags, which is still the best explanation I can tell you for what I was thinking. Another time, I remember mapping out the blueprints for a watch that shot out like a 10-foot long piece of wire or something that one could shoot out as a clip and act as a mini grappling hook in a pinch. The things you think of when you don't yet know how ridiculous they sound. But which is why I find these types of genre-bending video games so beautiful. They're one of the few things that can jog my memory to back when I was a kid, and when the world seemed so much more wondrous and the possibilities were endless. Back then, it was easier to think, why not combine an Xbox and a PS2 and a GameCube, even though the price point alone would restrict like 99% of the audience? Or why not take your bike to the hardware store when you're 11 years old and ask the man behind the counter if they had any extendable millimeter thick copper wire that I could shoot out of my watch or something? Yeah, that actually happened. Why not? Look, I'm in my 30s nowadays. I have 2 young kids. I've had my heart broken. I've been fired from jobs. I've gone broke. I don't really have these kind of ideas much anymore. But when I play a game like Inscryption, or see Kiryu from Yakuza go from a frowning, scowling mobster to dancing his ass off with his best friend at the disco club, or when I'm playing Dave the Diver and discover yet another genre these developers shoved into this indie gem. So far, I'm counted a fishing sim, a 2D roguelike platformer, an animal breeding sim, a restaurant sim, and an RPG. I mean, that game has it all. Look, I just can't help but think back to a time when I thought more things like this were possible. That it would actually be a good idea to combine such random, opposite things into one better thing. And that I could do this purely through my imagination. I may not have my old boundless, endlessly creative imagination that I did when I was a kid. I mean, getting fired and going broke and experiencing mass rejection for years and years on end can do that to a person, I think. But when I see games like these, they remind me of a time when I did have that imagination. And honestly, they inspire me to remember that the world is a beautiful place, full of really talented people with really awesome ideas. And if I look around for it, I can experience more of this beauty myself in my own life. Thanks for watching. And if you like this video, be sure to click that subscribe button.